Amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, also known as ALS, motor neuron disease, or Lou Gehrig's disease, is a non-contagious disorder that causes the death of neurons, which control voluntary muscles. Motor neurons are nerve cells extending from the brain to the spinal cord and to muscles throughout the body. They handle communication from the brain to muscles that produce movements such as talking, chewing, or walking. As ALS progresses, these neurons degenerate and die off. They stop sending signals to the muscles, which in turn gradually weaken and become atrophied. In the final stages, the brain can no longer initiate and control voluntary movement. ALS is slightly more common in men than in women, and it usually occurs in people that are between the ages of 40 and 70, with 55 being the average. ALS is a truly horrifying disease for a number of reasons. Sufferers gradually lose control of their bodies and begin to struggle with the simplest tasks. Death by respiratory failure typically occurs within 2 to 4 years after the onset of the symptoms, and researchers still don't know what causes ALS or how it can be cured. Number 4. Mao Zedong. Mao Zedong was a Chinese communist revolutionary who went on to become the founding father of the People's Republic of China. He ruled as chairman of China's Communist Party from 1949 until his death in 1976. His theories, political policies, and military strategies are collectively referred to as Maoism. He is often regarded as one of the most important and influential people in the modern history of the world. Mao was diagnosed with ALS in July 1974 and gradually lost control of his motor functions up until his death in 1976 at 82. In the majority of ALS cases, the cause isn't known, but the main suspects are genetic and environmental factors. There are about 20 genes associated with the onset of familial ALS, and out of all of them, a defect of the chromosome 9 open reading frame 72 gene has been identified in 40% of cases. A number of other gene mutations have been linked to ALS, including defects in how proteins are broken down and used to build new ones. A lot less is known about sporadic ALS, for which there have been numerous studies yielding various inconclusive culprits. A 2016 study found a connection between the disease and exposure to lead or other heavy metals. Other studies have cited smoking, strenuous physical activity, head trauma, and exposure to toxic chemicals or pesticides as possible contributing factors. All of these potential causes have been extensively examined and analyzed, but in most cases, a definitive link was never proven between them and the onset of ALS. Number 3. Lou Gehrig. ALS is sometimes commonly referred to as Lou Gehrig's disease, after the American baseball player that was diagnosed with it in 1939. Known as the Iron Horse for his batting average and longevity in the sport, Lou Gehrig led the New York Yankees to 6 World Series championships between 1923 and 1939. Throughout his 17 seasons in Major League Baseball, Gehrig only played for the Yankees. His records for most career Grand Slams and for most consecutive games played went unbroken for many years. His game streak ended in May 1939 when he made the surprising decision to take himself out of the lineup. He had been feeling weak and unsteady. His batting average had dropped, and it was evident that his coordination as well as his ability to run the bases was off. He retired from professional baseball at 36 after he was diagnosed with the incurable disease. Upon his retirement, he made one of the greatest speeches in sports history, known as the luckiest man on the face of the earth speech at Yankee Stadium. After his retirement, Gehrig wrote, "I intend to hold on as long as possible, and if the inevitable comes, I will accept it philosophically and hope for the best. That's all we can do." He died at his home 2 years later. When the news of his death broke out, flags were flown at half-staff at ballparks across the US. For his achievement in the sport, the legendary first baseman would become the first Major League Baseball player to have his uniform number retired by a team. Today, the Lou Gehrig Memorial Award is given each year to the MLB player who exhibits Gehrig's character and integrity. Researchers don't really know why neurons die in ALS. Neurodegeneration is believed to involve multiple cellular and molecular processes. They're responsible for the death of upper motor neurons in the brain's motor cortex and lower motor neurons in the brainstem and spinal cord. Initial symptoms can include muscle twitches in the leg, arm, shoulder, or tongue. Muscles may begin to develop cramps and become tight or stiff. Other symptoms involve difficulty chewing or swallowing, as well as slurred and nasal speech. The first sign may appear in one of the hands, and the sufferer may experience difficulty buttoning a shirt, writing, or turning a key. Initial signs can also occur in a leg, with the person tripping or stumbling more often when they are walking or running. As the disease progresses, there will be problems with breathing, moving, speaking, or swallowing. Although progression varies in each case, the sufferer eventually won't be able to get out of bed on their own, stand, walk, or use their hands and arms. They'll become malnourished because they can't swallow or chew, and also people with ALS burn calories faster. The muscles responsible for respiration will systematically become weaker, so breathing will become more difficult. Sufferers usually retain higher mental functions, so they're aware of what's happening to them and may become depressed or anxious. ALS is a nightmarish disease, and only about 10% of people affected by it survive more than 10 years. Number 2. Stephen Hillenburg. As a child in California, Stephen Hillenburg developed a fascination for the ocean and became interested in art. In 1984, he began his professional career as an instructor of marine biology at the Orange County Marine Institute. His passion for animation eventually led him to enroll in the California Institute of Arts. In 1994, he started to develop the concepts and characters for what would become the SpongeBob SquarePants animated series. The cartoon was a worldwide phenomenon and earned Hillenburg 2 Emmy Awards and 6 Annie Awards. In addition to his work in animation, Hillenburg also made efforts to raise marine life awareness. In 2017, he disclosed in an interview with Variety magazine that he'd been diagnosed with ALS. He stated that he would continue to work on the SpongeBob series for as long as possible. He died at his home in November 2018 of cardiopulmonary failure. His body was cremated and his ashes were scattered in the Pacific Ocean off the coast of California. There currently isn't any known cure for ALS, and the treatments that exist are only effective in managing certain symptoms or prolonging life by a minor margin. A medication called RILUZOLE can extend life by several months. A feeding tube or mechanical ventilation may help but won't stop the disease from progressing. The same is true for physical or speech therapy. The internet phenomenon known as the ALS Ice Bucket Challenge managed to raise awareness about the disease and $115 million for the ALS Association, with the aim of funding research into the disorder. Scientists are currently trying to understand the connection between ALS and some forms of frontotemporal dementia, or FTD. In animal models, they're studying the mutations of specific genes associated with both disorders. Research is being done to observe how cellular defects affect the impairment of motor neurons. Stem cell models are also being used to study ALS. These cells can become any cell type in the body, including motor neurons and others that may be involved in ALS. Number 1. Stephen Hawking. British physicist, cosmologist, and author Stephen William Hawking is remembered as one of the most brilliant scientific minds in history. He was diagnosed with ALS in 1963, and the disease gradually paralyzed him. At first he used crutches to get around, but was eventually confined to a wheelchair for the rest of his life. He was able to communicate by using an electronic speech generating device operated by a single functioning muscle in his cheek. However, despite his physical limitations, Hawking's mind gifted the world a plethora of scientific and mathematical theories. Between 1979 and 2009, he was the professor of mathematics at the prestigious University of Cambridge. He was the first to propose a theory of cosmology through the union of quantum mechanics and the general theory of relativity. He worked with Sir Roger Penrose on gravitational singularity theorems in the context of general relativity He theorized that black holes emit radiation, which would often be referred to as Hawking radiation. Hawking also published several works of popular fiction in which he discusses cosmology and his own theories on the events that shaped our universe. His book, A Brief History of Time, was aimed at non-specialist readers and was on the Sunday Times list of best-selling books for a record-breaking 237 weeks. Among the numerous distinctions he received for his work, Hawking was awarded the Presidential Medal of Freedom, which is the highest civilian distinction in the US. He's one of the very few people to have lived with ALS for over 5 decades. His battle with the disease ended on March the 14th, 2018, at age 76.